how queries shape the story in data. In this example, we will explore how filtering and grouping can change what we see in a dataset. Understanding how these queries shape results is an important part of analyzing data. How is data organized? So before we look at analyzing data, the data must be organized. So most systems store information inside a database. Within that database, their schemas help organize all the related tables, and tables actually store the actual records. A record represents rows, each represent a data entry, and each column represents a type of information. Once that data is structured in a table, we begin asking questions using queries. The data set. Let's start with a simple data set of community college students. Each row represents a student record, and each column stores a type of information about that student. In this example, we're going to look at the student ID, program, enrollment status, credits, and whether that student has completed the program. Once that data is organized in a table like this, we can begin asking questions. Suppose we want to answer the following question. Which program has the lowest completion rate? At first glance, this seems like a straightforward question. However, the way we look at the data can influence the results we see. The first query. First, we run a simple query that groups the students by program. The query counts how many records appear for each program. By grouping the data, we start to see patterns in the data set and how students are distributed across the program. So now we begin by applying a filter. In this case, we only include students who are enrolled full-time. Some records are included, while others are excluded from this result. Even though the original data has not changed, the subset we are analyzing is now different. So let's compare the results. When we compare the results of the two queries, we may see different conclusions. The baseline query looks at all the students, while the filter queried only examined full-time students. Because of this difference, the program that appears to have this lowest completion rate may change. This demonstrates how the same data set can tell different stories depending on how it's analyzed. So queries shape interpretation. Data itself does not lie, but the interpretation of the data depends on how we analyze it. When working with data, it's important to ask questions such as who is included in this analysis, who might be excluded, and what assumptions are being made when the data is filtered or grouped. Understanding how these choices help us interpret data more thoughtfully. Queries are very powerful tools, but they also shape the story we see in data.